Hello, and welcome to the 84 Million Podcast. Today we have Adam McBride with us to chat with us today. Adam is a well-known NFT historian who's been involved in the blockchain space since 2016. He currently serves as partner at Emblem Vault, a cross-blockchain protocol that played a pivotal role in expanding the NFT market, especially in the trading of historical Bitcoin NFTs, Rare Pepes on Ethereum, etc. Adam believes that digital assets will have a significant impact on culture and that early NFTs will have a special place for collectors. He evangelizes the importance of interoperability across blockchains. Hi, Adam. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I see you got your Satoshi light. I got my Satoshi shirt on, so feel in good company here.
I do. You know, I saw you wearing this on your videos in Nashville, and I said, you know, I've never actually requested someone to wear something on my show, but I thought it would be cool. So I'm glad that you actually did. So we've got Satoshi and, of course, the great Satoshi light represented here on screen. So maybe before I introduce the topic and before we sort of start here, we were in Nashville. I ran into you at the Litecoin Summit, and you were also at the Bitcoin Summit. Do you want to just give some key takeaways from those events, or just reflect on that?
Well, the key takeaway is just that I feel like we're finally getting to a point where we might get a little bit of relief in the crypto industry. It feels like an administration change is coming, where crypto as a whole can kind of move forward. I think that was part of what I described as toppish feel of Bitcoin Nashville, which had that kind of vibe to it, which is like euphoria. Mm-hmm. Even though we haven't really, in my view, really kicked off a true bull market. We're kind of like middle of it right now. But that was the kind of my general feeling. Also, you saw I was doing kind of boots on the street interviews for fun there. I think the core lesson for me there, and I knew this already, but we're just at the very, very beginning of crypto. The vast, vast majority of the world has no idea what we're doing, has no idea what public blockchains are, have no idea what this new world's going to look like. I mean, we barely know, right? But it's that kind of early where I talked to enough people at the conference itself, who are walking in to go to Bitcoin Nashville, and they have no idea what's going on, right? They're just into kind of crypto to make money. They think it's a way for them to make money, but they don't really see the vision of what's actually possible here. So I'm always really excited when I realize we're at the starting point.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think sometimes, you've been around a few years, I've been around. I think the early years I was kind of, the idea was shared with me. The user experience was horrible, but I knew about it. This is back in Ron Paul days, 2012 sort of thing. Early Bitcoin. I didn't have any at the time because again, terrible user experience and just confusing. But I kind of kept my eye on it for a while and kind of got back in probably 16, something like this. Without going into my whole story, that's not the whole point. But sometimes being here after this kind of period of time, I kind of feel like, oh, we're not early anymore. If the cat's out of the bag, Fidelity has Litecoin now. But I think it's important for me to remember what you're sharing and what you're seeing, for example, in Nashville, seeing the Bitcoiners and the new variety of Bitcoiners. And I've commented about that on this show before. Although it seems like Ron Paul was received a little bit better this time around. I was concerned they didn't know who he was for a period of time. And the Fed, for me, was kind of what started the whole economic discovery back again in his campaign era. But, I was at the Litecoin convention or the summit, really. I did not go to Bitcoin Nashville. So I'm glad to hear those words. Those are encouraging. So it was good to meet you at the summit. I know you were there, and I think that's where we had our first kind of little chat and said, hey, can you come on the show? And now you're here. So I appreciate you being here. So as typical, I've got some questions, and we'll try to do our best to stay in line with them. But, who knows? By the way, this is the real podcaster sitting with me today, Mr. Adam McBride. So very glad to have him here. So where are we going to go? This is going to be, so we're a Litecoin podcast, right? 84million.com/podcast. And we're typically always focused on Litecoin. However, we can take some departures within reason. And I think today's one is an interesting one. We'll end more on the Litecoin side as we maybe land the plane on the episode. But my interest is more in the script mining, S-CRYPT mining. And that's where we can kind of tether these other ideas together into Litecoin. Litecoin being the oldest and kind of primary currently running S-CRYPT mined coin. So anyway, you and I were at the summit. I want to say it was Thursday afternoon, in an environment of busy Nashville. Bitcoin's about to start down the street. I think it was the pre-event with vendors, et cetera, kind of day. And Litecoin was on its second day. And I see all these hats in the, kind of exposition hall at the summit. They look like a bunch of MAGA hats. I look at one, and sadly, I had one in my hand and I didn't bring one home. Now I kind of wish I did. And it was a Bellscoin, make Bells great again, or something like this. And I'm like, what's going on with this? And this was a project that I was kind of aware of for a little while, getting a little bit skeptical about the actual narrative of it, questioning that. I'm like, it seems too good to be true. Perfect timing. I don't know about this. And long story short, I met you, and you're the guy that discovered this coin. So without going further, Bells is an S-CRYPT mined coin, and it's an old coin, and it's related to Litecoin, and it's related to Dogecoin. So so what do we do with this? I'm going to read a tweet from 1213. Sorry?
We'll get the TLDR on what it is. It basically,
okay,
for those, and I'm sure people listening to this podcast have never heard about it, but Dogecoin, the founder of Dogecoin, Billy Marcus, had launched another coin called Bellscoin about a week before Dogecoin. And I only learned about it this past year in December, when it was, I think, the 10th birthday of Doge, and people were kind of celebrating and tagging Billy on Twitter. Billy's a big Twitter personality. If you don't know him, it's Billy M2K on Twitter. He's a large, Elon retweets him. He's a big Twitter personality. And one of my friends kind of dove into it a little bit as this was kind of taking place on the celebration day, and found this old tweet from Billy, where he actually talked to Jackson Palmer, who was the co-founder of Dogecoin, about actually launching Dogecoin. And the tweet was to the effect of, hey, I'd like to do it with you. I've already launched a coin called Bells. And my friend who hit me up on DMs was like, bro, have you ever heard of, Bells? And as a kind of NFT crypto historian, I was like, no, what is this? And we kind of looked into it and quickly figured out that he basically launched this coin about a week before Doge in 2013. And Doge, a week later, took off like a rocket ship and was instantly adopted. People were instantly interested in it. And Bells had basically died within 18 months. People stopped mining it. It had died. And Doge is literally a fork of Bells. He took Bells, as he said, and you could find these old tweets. Doge was easy. I did it in like less than 5 minutes because he had already built Bells. And so we learned about this. And I also at that point learned that Bellscoin, people had tried to restart it multiple times in the past. It's been tried and failed probably 4 or 5 times now. And I was like, wow, this is somebody who likes stories and narratives. I was like, this is really cool, because this is literally the guy who did the Memecoin, the world knows. I mean, there's debate, but pretty much Dogecoin is the second most well-known blockchain on the planet, which is crazy. But still, it is. And here's one that this guy did a week earlier. Let's try and bring it back. And that's when I contacted Luke Wright, who I'd known from a couple other kind of projects, and he's well known in the Litecoin community, great developer, just an overall awesome dude. And he was like, I'd love to try and get this restarted. And literally later that day, he actually, working with another developer, were able to get this started back up. And it was basically 3 of us, the friend who had initially, told me about it, Luke and myself, and like one other developer. And we're basically running it. I'm like running it on one of my kids' old, laptops, and Luke's running it. And we ran it for like 4 or 5 days, make sure it was like working. And then I made a tweet about it. And it's like the most popular tweet I ever did. Crazy enough, where it just resonated with people immediately. Like, oh my God, this is so cool from just a cool factor perspective. And you could still at that point literally just, my tweet was literally just, here's how you set it up on your computer, go mine some, right? And people did, but within like 12 hours, literal mining rigs, like ASIC miners in China, got on top of Bells, and it became completely impossible to mine, on your computer. And the hash rate went crazy, and I was like, oh my God, what have we done? And here we are, I don't know, it's 9-10 months later, and this community's formed, trust me, not through any sort of like my effort, just because people kind of resonate with it, I think, to a large extent. Resonate that we launched it relatively fairly. There is no such thing as a perfect launch, but didn't hoard a bunch of coins early. And, Bitmain's, added it on the list of like, coins that can be mined with their new ASIC or new script miners. And it's just taken a life of its own, And so for me, it's just this kind of like, now I'm trying to like support this community as it goes forward. I have no idea like where it's going to go. But I do think it just really has this cool narrative, and, hopefully it's something that outlives me and just becomes part of, my little part of legacy, and like something I was able to kind of bring to life. And so that's just really cool for me. It makes me smile.
That's wild. And there's a lot of places we could go with this, but so it's Bellscoin. It was a predecessor to Dogecoin, basically.
Yep.
Doge forked from Bells, because I think most of us thought that it was Litecoin to Lucky Coin to Dogecoin, and nobody ever thought about Bells. And so a lot of us weren't aware of the existence of this. And of course, your tweet kind of laid this out, and I finally read it, and I'm like, wow, this is legitimate. And not only that is so for me, I kind of alluded to the perfect timing. I mean, Animal Crossing, the currency of Animal Crossing, and I know this is not a copyright trademark thing. This was something that a guy created as a meme. So again, this is a meme token, and now we know it's the parent of the most popular meme token, and the previously thought original meme token, namely Doge. And but anyway, back to the Animal Crossing kind of brand or franchise or whatever. I want to say that was 2000, 2001 when that came out. And now, I remember the COVID era when everyone was locked away, they were playing the newer iteration on Switch of Animal Crossing. And it's multi-generational now. And of course, they're still using Bells in the game as their currency. And it's just kind of wild. I'm like, okay, so maybe he did create Bells. This is before I read your tweet. Like maybe he did create Bells and it was just BEL. It could have been any kind of bell. I don't know, just Bells. He thought it was cool at the time. And now they're rewriting a narrative to connect it with something that's mega popular around the world. You can get Crocs with charms with the characters on it. You can get, stuffed animals or whatever for your kids, Lego sets with Animal Crossing on it, etc. Like, of course, now that would be a good time to kind of tie that together. And then in your your thread, you linked into the Bitcoin Talk forum, I believe, where he actually announced that this actually is kind of a mimicking or some sort of honorary reference or association with the Animal Crossing game. And that's what really I'm like, wow, this is kind of insane. And
it's a little bit, that's one of the cool kind of parts of this story is that he didn't just make up a name. He was literally like, oh, I love this game. Right. Let me just make like a knockoff. Yeah. And wouldn't it be cool if, it's almost like tying in this idea of, which we're still talking about, tying in blockchain technology with games, right? It's like it's the thing that always seems just around the corner, right?
Yeah.
But that's what it was. And he did that, and it really was. It was a call out of Animal Crossing, and the native like currency inside Animal Crossing is Bells, and so that's what it was. And it has this kind of fun little tie-in. Which one of the kind of things you probably didn't see is that the people who continued it for a while, then it died, and then they tried to spin it up again.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Tell us about that.
They tried to go away from the Animal Crossing and away from Nintendo because they were worried about, Nintendo suing them or whatever. Right. As we're kind of like this decentralized community, there's nothing really to sue here. And so people are going full in on it. They're like, oh, we're going to name the wallet Nintendo, right? To harken back to, the initial block of Bellscoin, which has, Nintendo kind of named in it and stuff. And so people are actually leaning into it, because there's not, like, we've joked around. It's like, if Nintendo sued us, I don't even know what they'd sue, but if they wanted to sue, it'd be the greatest thing to ever happen to Bellscoin. Right?
That's true.
It would be amazing. Like, please do.
Yeah.
Right? So people are kind of leaning into it, and it's all in just fun. I mean, it's really just, it is a true meme coin. It's like we're leaning into, like, it's a meme chain in a lot of ways, like with the way Dogecoin is. But it's a proof of work, like one blockchain, which is amazing. And we can get into some of the details about, doing ordinals and all this sort of stuff on top of it, which we've been able to kind of accomplish very early. And it could be much more, but at the core, it is just, it's a meme token and a meme chain. And that, I think that in and of itself is just cool.
It is cool. And I just want to make a comment about Doge. So I believe in a multi-chain future. As much as I like Bitcoin, I just don't think, if we're going to talk about it being a base layer of world commerce, nothing's been realized in terms of this yet. But Bitcoin is the king in the room, right? But there's no way that you're going to use a single, especially L1, Bitcoin if we got to that, let's say the perfect utopian situation where everyone is, on blockchain, decentralized, and there's no more central banks and all this entire, the point is Bitcoin couldn't do it. So Indigo, a friend of mine, he and I a few years ago started using a term, the Nakamoto standard. So we thought you can't do Bitcoin alone with the 21 million, but maybe with the 84 million Litecoin, and then the Dogecoin as a tail emission to Litecoin, seeing that it's unlimited and it has a kind of a fixed issuance per block, something like that. You could make an analogy of gold, silver, and copper or something like this, just like a gold, silver, kind of a gold standard, but now crypto. So we liked that. I think it works. And some of that, the gold and silver narratives have already been established. But, it's proof of work currency. And I think that's really important. But anyway, back to the Nakamoto standard. I have this poster behind me, and the orange, the blue, and the kind of the gold color, those are actually the Genesis messages inscribed in block 0 on each of them. Chancellor on the brink for Bitcoin, Steve Jobs, Apple's visionary, dies at 56. That's Charlie's one. And then the one at the bottom just says Nintendo, because that was Dogecoin's. Yeah, that was Dogecoin's block 0 message. So we're always like, okay, well, it's much wow and, everything else in primitive dog speak or whatever, Doge speak. And it's always been kind of a joke, fun meme. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't make any sense, but sure, it makes perfect sense because it doesn't make sense. It's Doge, right? And that was another big thing where it's like, wait a minute, if this is actually a fork, that actually makes total sense.
Makes total sense.
It's absolute. It points exactly backwards 8 days to Bells. And I guess when they forked it, they didn't bother to change the block 0 inscription.
Block 0, that's exactly right.
Because Nintendo, yeah.
And he did it in 5 minutes. He probably didn't even think of changing the block 0, right? Yeah, it's super cool. And that's a really cool poster. I saw your post on that yesterday or whatever. Very cool poster. I'd like to know where you got that so I can get one myself, because it's just a really cool, idea. And I'm with you. Like the idea of, and you want to talk about Bitcoin, I'll talk about Bitcoin and Satoshi all day long. It's one of my favorite subjects. But this idea that we've just created, Satoshi created decentralized money, and we're gonna mimic the U.S. dollar system as like what we're gonna choose one, and there shall only be one in a free market.
Yeah,
doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense, especially when you get into ideas of, okay, well, what's a fair launch? And pardon, the hardcore Bitcoin maxis out there who want to tell me that this is the immaculate launch and the immaculate conception of Bitcoin. I could poke 50 holes in that about how there's, risk as to who Satoshi was. And I could point out all the potential risks there, and, that he's got 1 million coins and all these risks and stuff.
Yeah.
It just seems very unlikely, if not impossible, that 100% of the people on the globe are going to agree that that's going to be our currency. I'm much more of the mind that people will choose their currencies, okay? And sometimes people choose currencies because they have a funny dog associated with it, or it's easier to use, or it has a hard money cap, or whatever that may be. I don't think there's any question about that. And like to Dogecoin's point, like I know people who were, working in Africa and stuff like that for a number of years after kind of Bitcoin got expensive. Dogecoin was like the number one, cryptocurrency that was used.
Wow.
In Africa. People laugh at it like that's crazy. Why would you use it? Because they wanted cheap, near free transactions that had some semblance of like, they weren't wildly crazy, price fluctuations and stuff, right? They've now moved on to, Tether or, Tron's USD, whatever stable they're using, because it's fit their needs. But, to think that a future can exist where, we choose the crypto, and maybe it's Litecoin, maybe it's Dogecoin, maybe it's who knows what it is. It might not even be invented yet. I think that's a far more likely future than Bitcoin, one coin to rule them all. I think, honestly, the Bitcoiners killed that a few years ago. So, yeah, we could talk about that forever.
Yeah, fair enough on that. I think it's no longer, it's abandoned the idea of person-to-person, electronic cash, and it's just becoming more expensive. I'm just saying it's not an important, how do I say this? It's obviously Bitcoin's very important. I think it's important. I respect it for what it is, but it's not going to be person-to-person money. It just doesn't make economic sense. In the old days, it was buy your coffee with it, and we're talking about third world situations. They're going to be 100 miles from a bank, but they have a cell phone. This is what we want to use, and that was kind of the early kind of evangelism techniques. And now we're very, very far removed from that. And I don't see it going backwards. So yeah, I think multi-chain, of course, I promote Litecoin, and I think there's a lot of speed and a lot of, how do I say it? It's kind of like a perfect substitute for Bitcoin, especially with what Bitcoin has become. But Dogecoin, I've included in that too. And that's only been the past few years, because initially it's like, okay, this is a joke, and they had a NASCAR, but are there any developers? And it's unlimited, although it's rule-based, despite it being unlimited, which I think is important. So yeah, we're going to need a lot. If we're going to move the whole world on chain, the best thing would be proof of work, decentralized chains. So Bitcoin can be one of them. Litecoin, Dogecoin, we'll add bells in. I want to talk more about the future of that
I'm only laughing
down the road here, because I think
agree it's silly, but
the cat's out of the bag, and people will use what they want,
That's
right. But
and I think a lot of it is just to kind of to think it out a little further. It's like part of me is people will often make their choices on fairness and the community around it. And I think to what Charlie did with Litecoin, it's just one of those things where he did the best he could to make this as fair a launch as possible. And I think but we all recognize true fairness is literally impossible. It's like I used to tell my kid when he was little, fair doesn't exist. Fair's this myth, right? We shoot for it and we try to get as close to it as possible. But the reality is that you're never early, especially in crypto. If you're there early, it's never going to be, there is no fair. There's no such thing, right? But people will kind of, to that point, just use what they feel works for them. And Doge is this kind of magical example where something can literally start as a joke, like literally a joke to point out how stupid crypto is. And if you go back and you read Billy's stuff about it, he's literally pointing out how dumb crypto is when he's launching this. And yet it's taken on a life of its own. And the funny thing is I was there when we were kind of helping develop, putting ordinals on Dogecoin and stuff. The hardcore Dogecoiners, at least some of them, sounded exactly like hardcore Bitcoiners. You're spamming the chain. Doge is money. Stop messing with our money, And it's this sort of stuff that is like, it's crazy that it's gone so far that there are literally Dogecoiners who believe that Doge is money, and that's it. End of story. Don't pollute our chain with ordinals and JPEGs, right? So it's just funny how far, Dogecoin has come, honestly. And it's incredible, really.
I think so too. And that's the funny thing too. At the Litecoin Summit, the foundation did ask me to lead a panel on ordinals, and we did, and there were 4 guests with us. The last podcast, we kind of highlighted that. But that was one of the questions we did to kind of get the FUD out of the way, right away was, why is this not just block span? It's competing with transactional, or it's competing with Litecoin transactions on chain. It's block spam. This is taking up our space, and we only have so much of it. And I think we can throw that out pretty quick. The point is, it's not going away. But I was suspect initially in the beginning too, because oh no, like what are we going to do with this? But the point is, I'm one of however many users. But the weird thing with this is how Casey there was no fork, hard or soft or anything like this. This was just like a permissionless add-on that's just, it wasn't a Litecoin it came on Bitcoin first. It wasn't a Bitcoin improvement proposal or anything like that. It's bolted on and you can't stop it. So there's indexers you could stop, but that's about it. But let's go back to Bells before we move on, because I do want to hear about ordinals, and we can talk about all the chains and the things you're watching there. But in terms of Bellscoin, I do think it's interesting, the Genesis message. I can't read it, but I did ask Luke, who's a friend of mine as well. He was on episode 4. He says it's there. The Nintendo is indeed there. There is the Bells Block Explorer, bells.quark.blue. I couldn't see that it realized it there, but it is the Block Zero message. So that's crazy.
Nintendo, so it's TONDO.
Correct.
Nintendo. .io, I believe.
Okay.
You can see that they have new block explorers and stuff where you can. Some guys have put out new ones which are much better. Now it's like we've gone through. Trust me, just over the last 8 months or whatever. Like there were times when we were concerned the chain was going to stop, which I didn't even know was a thing. Blockchain freeze or whatever they call it, because we had these wild fluctuations in. And the difficulty to mine blocks was crazy out of whack because we had so much hash power trying to mine the bells early on, trying to get these early blocks which had like 10,000 bell in them. So like they dump all their hash power at bells to try and get those blocks, and then they'd suck it all out once the 10K block came through. And so we had blocks stuck for like hours. I mean, we had ones, I don't even know, 12 hours, 10 hours, blocks were stuck. And there was real risk that the chain was just going to stop, right? Basically solve that issue. And once we go full merge mining, it'll be completely solved. But, those early days were definitely, the chain was at risk.
So yeah, I'll add this. So that's interesting to me. And seeing that, I've kind of come to my own conclusions about this, and we'll keep, sharing our experience with this. But I do have some bells. I did buy some. There's my disclosure. I think everybody knows we have Litecoin. The shop takes it and everything else. But I do have some bells. I think it's personally interesting historically, and I think it's significant that it is proof of work. So I do have a small portion of bells. But the cool thing is there was I guess when you guys rolled this out and resuscitated the old code and the old wallets, you could still actually kind of. And by the way, I had the Node. Now I've had the Nintendo version 3, but I had the Node initially, and the first transaction that I sent took 45 minutes. I'm like, this is a 1-minute blockchain. This is terrible. I'm like, this is the worst experience. This is slower than Bitcoin at this rate. But then it cleared up. But initially, I'm like, did I screw something up? But it's the same node environment. The interface looks like you're running a Bitcoin node or Litecoin core. It's the same thing. And they're improving it as we speak. But I was curious. I'm like, what's going on with these block times? And what you're saying, it was just hash power?
So basically we used the original code. Everything was original when Luke actually got it running.
Mm-hmm. You could mine from the node.
You could literally mine from your desktop wallet.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Which was basically, I think, just a fork of, the Bitcoin wallet at the time in 2013, right? So you could totally mine directly from the wallet for those like magical 12 hours. And a lot of people...
That's how long it took? 12 hours until the miners came in.
Till somebody with ScriPT miner. And I know, I'm not going to say his name, but in Ordinals, I know some miners. Yeah. And they obviously follow my account.
Yeah.
And they realized, I'll just spin up, 12, ScriPT miners or whatever, and, just basically took over the chain, right? So...
Wild. Yeah.
So it didn't take that long. But very quickly, we're we've had so many lucky breaks of just really amazing people in our community. And a couple of them are just these incredible developers. And they were able to come out with a version 2 of Bellscoin Core, which enabled ordinals. We call them Bellinals, but enabled ordinals. And what happened when they did that, it enabled it. They still hadn't figured out, all the technicals of how people were going to do ordinals. And a whole nother community member actually figured that out and was able to kind of inscribe the first ones. But when that happened, it went so crazy as far as the number of people who were trying to inscribe that the chain was just a complete shit show. Just to use, it was a disaster where we had blocks just hours where you couldn't get blocks through. The mempool had millions of transactions in it. And it was just that sort of thing, right? Where the chain was not ready at all for that to take place. And actually, this is where, I always kind of thank Billy when I talk about it, because I actually reached out to Billy Marcus at that time on Twitter. He was nice enough to DM me back. He actually put us in contact with some Dogecoin core developers who walked us through what we need to do to fix this blockchain. Wow. So the reality is once, and Bell's 3.0 is actually out. It's live now on testnet and it's running. But when that's fully integrated, basically it's a bigger, faster, stronger version of Dogecoin. Because Dogecoin, they had to make changes early on in their process that they can't undo. Because now they to get consensus to redo kind of the core protocol would basically be impossible because there are too many nodes in the network and stuff, right? So, but we still are small enough where we can actually get those changes made. We know all the exchanges, all the pools, we know them all, and they're willing to move us forward. So we can actually have this kind of very robust, ecosystem going forward, which who knows if it'll be anything, but it gives a lot of, it gives the opportunity for artists or people who want to build stuff to do stuff kind of on Bellscoin, which, will give it a really nice shot to maybe have this second life as something other than just strictly a meme coin, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because I think it can learn from all the things that happened since on Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin. So it was resuscitated. It's been running again, I guess, for 8 months now, something like this?
December. Yeah.
December.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in that period of time, you've had 3 iterations of a wallet. And I'm playing catch up a few weeks, because again, I was aware of it. Like, I don't know about this. And then after I read I didn't find your tweet initially. I heard about it before I found you, so I didn't know how this came, how was this cat released from the bag and where are we finding it? But you provided a lot in that thread, which we'll link in the show notes. But it's an interesting historical artifact. It is proof of work. It's in the lineage of Litecoin and a predecessor to Doge. So I just think it's really neat, actually. And the idea that it will be merge mined with Litecoin and Doge shortly. I do not remember which block it's going to activate on, but I think it's concurrent with the release of the L9s, something like this. In a few weeks, I think it's going to be merge mined. Is that correct?
Well, depending on the speed of the chain, it's set to like a block height, right?
Okay, block height, right.
It's a few weeks, but it might be, it might be a month or two. Okay. So yeah, but then it's going to be merge mined. Bitmain, who obviously has a vested interest in selling more miners,
right,
obviously grabbed onto Bellscoin because it's like, look, they want to be able to show to their end users like as much revenue as possible, right?
Right.
And so the idea of having an extra coin, always attractive. So they've been, very helpful to try and make this all happen, rightly so. And look, it's aligned incentives, right? We want it to be successful. Yeah. They want it to be successful. The miners want it to be successful. Right. So it's aligned incentives. So I have no problem with that. And yeah, they've been really great about trying to, move the ball forward and help us hopefully in the future, maybe set up a foundation or something similar to what Litecoin has done to kind of, again, just make sure this kind of lives on. Yeah. That's my whole purpose with Bellscoin now, just trying to make it, live and grow the community around it and, see where it goes. Now, who knows? You do get in these kind of interesting scenarios where some talented developer or team or whatever builds the next thing, and the next thing, nobody knows what the next thing is going to be. I don't know. Solana was dead, 18 months ago or 2 years ago. It was dead. Like, people were thinking it's going to go offline, and Pumped Up Fund happened, and the right wallets happened, and all of a sudden you have a booming ecosystem, right? It only takes that, and that's obviously for any chain. Same for Litecoin. And so I think it's this continual trial and error, which I love as an entrepreneur. This is my whole life. I just love trying to support people building cool stuff. And, what happens or what works or not, that's up to fate, I guess.
Yeah, here. I think it's just fascinating and interesting. And I'm interested to see where this is going. I like the idea of merge mining on the S-CRYPT side. That makes sense. I did notice that Bitmain already had the little bell next to their L9 in their literature, because, of course, there's a lot of literature in Nashville. When we were there, they had a pretty big event, and they were at both summits. They were at the Litecoin Summit and the Bitcoin Conference, and they had their own private things going on too. So that, I think, is significant, and it does make sense for them from a business standpoint, but it's also going to strengthen the network. I mean, seeing that we went from a node environment to being competitively mined outside of that environment within, I think you said 12 days, now to a giant, behemoth of mining infrastructure supporting this. I mean, I don't think it's going to shut down again. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like my node count, the peers are full. I mean, people are running it.
Knock on wood. Litecoin's the big daddy, and it just kind of drags us along, right? And I'm very hopeful. Much, much more hopeful than I was, after we brought this back. I'm very, very hopeful now that, this is actually going to, live on. And I'm pretty psyched about that, no doubt. But it is this kind of like, you see what happens. And I've been part of stuff like this before, but, that literally people from all over the world can come together and get behind something and work independently from each other with literally no coordination other than aligned incentives to make sure this runs and lives on is it's miraculous. And that is the power of decentralized technology. It's just it's a continual reminder to me about what a special space we're in.
I think so too. And I will mention the community is pretty strong. I barely tweeted about this on my account. I think the poster picture and people are coming in. Oh, this, oh, Nintendo, it's kind of amazing. And it's exciting actually to see the kind of the vigor behind it. And I think it's cool. And again, this is a cousin of Litecoin or a child of Litecoin. So I have to appreciate it.
Well, I think part of it was we've been now, and I think somebody put out a good tweet about it the other day about forming communities, and to really solidify a community, you have to go through the mud. Mm-hmm. And, when it launched and I did that post, the price went crazy because there was almost no bells on the market, right? It went up to, I don't even know, like $8 or something, right? People didn't even understand economics, it went crazy. And then it immediately went down to, I don't know, 50 cents, 60 cents, 20 cents. And we
still were very strong, actually. I was impressed. I'm like, wow. I mean, yes, it released and, which we've seen that in other coins too. But, I'm impressed at the price, to be honest. We don't talk about price much on this show, whether it's Litecoin or whatever else.
I literally don't care about price at all.
Yeah.
But I think for that to happen and just go down and down and down or whatever, but to go down through it where the community literally doesn't care, like the community is literally like, we were joking around, like, I hope it gets to a penny, right?
Yeah.
Because that core group of people now can get in on the cheap. People are like, we had some community members that are like, McBride, you got to get out there and post more. We got to pump the price. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to. Yeah. I want the price to go low so that we have 6 months or 8 months of accumulation here where people can get in. Like, yeah. I don't buy any because I don't want to, I'm not manipulating the price at all. There's nothing going on. But I like that people were able to get in at 15 cents or 20 cents. And, maybe it just stays at 20 cents. I literally don't care. I do care about the chain living on and it becoming something cool and interesting. Like, that's what I'm focused on, because I know if it becomes cool and interesting, guess what happens to the price? Like, that's what happens, right? So adoption, why people want to have it, the story behind it, the narrative, Actually, I think at the Litecoin conference, there's a really great talk by the guy from Coinbase. I don't know if you caught that.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
ETF of Litecoin. And he made one really good point, which is like the narrative, your narrative in Litecoin has to improve. I think that's absolutely true. You have to have in this day and age of attention economy, you have to have a really strong narrative. And I think Litecoin's done itself a service by having like that brand manager guy who spoke about, it's VPM, it's virtual private money. Like, man, I was like, I literally stopped him after that talk. I was like, that is amazing. It's exactly what Litecoin needs, right? That kind of strong narrative where you're taking on something and saying, this is what we are. It's powerful. And meme coins need it. And crypto projects need it. 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was in that talk. It's interesting. And I believe you're referring to Robbie Coleman and the VPM.run, which is a pretty cool thing. You can visit kind of a primitive website right now, but I think later this month, they're going to unveil a more complete one with more language. But you can see the white paper, kind of the idea behind it. It will be using MWeb, Litecoin's Mimblewimble extension blocks, which are confidential transactions. I think that's interesting. The foundation has done quite a bit. They're doing the summits and things like that. The Lite.space is really going to be interesting, especially with Charlie, and he announced this at the summit, matching donations and giving outright donations to the foundation, over $1 million over the next few years. And he's matching, I believe, everything on Lite.space up to 50,000. So there's a lot of matching that he's, out of his own generosity, providing. So I think there's exciting things coming at the foundation front, but there's also we're decentralized, and we need to kind of pick up where we can and create an ecosystem too, because we're all part of it. So I can go both ways on narrative or like centralization or things like that. I would say, just to the other side of the gentleman's statement, for Litecoin, I do think it's significant that it would be considered a digital commodity. There are very few of those. And I think the Fidelities of the world or the Coinbases in this case could do their own narrating, to be fair, seeing what exists, how well it's operated over the past several years. And, they could write a narrative too. So we'll wait for that to a degree. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if that started happening when things change, but we'll have to see. I don't know. I know in terms of stock market trading in the United States, we're looking really at LTCN, the Grayscale Litecoin Trust, which has done quite well. And I would think they would convert to an ETF if it made sense, but we'll see. Doge might be the next ETF. Who knows? I don't know. But I'm very optimistic for Litecoin and its future, and the community's changing, and it works great, especially when Bitcoin doesn't. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think they're almost like two things. And, with the idea of like, what's going to make Litecoin's price go up? Okay. Obviously getting an ETF. Okay. That's great. You're going to have 401ks buying your Litecoin. Obviously the price is going to go up over time. But the other thing is, are there any cool projects that are going to bring users on? I think, when we were doing ordinals on Litecoin and Luke was, leading that charge, and my company, Emblem Vault, the first ones sold were all on Ethereum through Emblem Vault and stuff, trying to support that, even though it kind of petered out and nothing happened on it. That's okay, because you had some people trying some stuff. And I think, supporting that as a chain is really important, even when it may not completely align with Litecoin is money, which I'm sure you have some believe Litecoin is money. It's money. It's money. That's fine. But supporting those builders who are trying to do something that might not be completely in your wheelhouse is really important. And I like to use the founders of Ethereum when NFTs were going off. Okay. And a lot of founders of Ethereum they didn't care about NFTs. Even Vitalik kind of came out where this is stupid and this sort of stuff. But there were several founders who paid $1 million for NFTs, at Sotheby's and Christie's and all this sort of stuff. By doing that, they supported the ecosystem. Yeah. Right. They created buzz, excitement. They just spent a little bit of their money and a fraction of what they had, but it supported and it grew awareness and stuff like that. And I encourage Bitcoiners to do that. I encourage people who hold Litecoin to do that, because it goes a long way to supporting, the infrastructure build out, the wallets and all the rest of it, to just become better. Yeah. And I don't think there's any question that ordinals happening, 18 months ago, made the entire Bitcoin ecosystem way better.
Yeah.
The wallets are way better. The explorers are better. Everything's better in Bitcoin because ordinals took off. So I just always encourage that across chains.
Yeah, and I can see that with Litecoin too, just to see the activity. I think we're looking at 50, what's my numeric? Is it 50? It's 50,000. I don't want to say it. I'm going to misquote. But there's a lot of activity related just to ordinals activity. And that's bringing a lot of activity to the network. Of course, it's not really doing anything to fees, which is great. And that's another reason why, in that high fee environment of Bitcoin, you have some migration to use Litecoin as money, because Bitcoin is not as friendly as a money with transactions when you're paying higher fees. And that was also part of ordinals too, right? But where do we want to go with this? Maybe we'll segue into ordinals. Talk about Bitcoin, talk about Litecoin, maybe some of the projects that you've liked to see. And then of course, Doginals and Bellinals. I mean, have you been studying all of these, I imagine?
I mean, Jake, who's my partner at Emblem Vault, Leonidas, who you guys probably know on X, who runs the ordinals show Space. We interviewed Casey in September, the year before ordinals were launched, to talk about ordinals. We were the first one to have him on a space on Twitter. So we were very early to ordinals. We were there when it launched. I have some stories around trying to spin up a Bitcoin node prior to launch, missed opportunities. But, the idea, which, I mean, let's be clear, it's very similar retread to what, Counterparty was on Bitcoin, 5 years before. But the idea that you're going to not have, NFTs and fungible tokens on top of Bitcoin is silly. Like, that idea was going to happen. It did happen already in the past. Bitcoiners kind of shut it down, and the market was just completely ready for it. I don't know how to put it other than that. 21 happened, the NFT explosion happened, and and enough Bitcoiners or people who love Bitcoin were ready for what Casey was going to bring to the table. And, my Counterparty friends, of which I have many, were like, why not Counterparty? It's like, well, you were too early, right? And then ordinals hit, and it literally went from, ordinals on Bitcoin to ordinals on Litecoin. Litecoin was the first one to have ordinals after Bitcoin.
Yep.
Then Dogecoin, and on down the list, and ordinals went literally across every chain to even on Ethereum. We had this thing called inscriptions, which you might not even know about, where people figured out how to put, store data in the call data of Ethereum transactions and stuff. And so it just opens. It's like the 4-minute mile, right? When you break it, it's like the floodgates open.
Yeah.
And Casey opened this idea like, hey, this is an idea which we've been talking about literally since 2013. Here it is again. And the market was completely ready for it. And it's beautiful when that sort of stuff, comes together.
Yeah, I think so. And I was looking here because I had a note of what the transactions break down to per day. So 50,000, it was not millions, but 50,000 transactions per day related to ordinals on Litecoin. So that's a lot of activity.
It is.
We're nearing 27 million. I'm not sure what Bitcoin is, how many inscriptions are there now. It was only a few days ago I finally found the Bellinals Explorer.
It's like 8
this
million on Bitcoin.
Okay.
Something like that. Bells, there's over 100 million, believe it or not.
Wow.
It's over 100 million. And I'm sure that'll grow exponentially as people kind of, get into it. I have very little doubt it's going to be the number one kind of inscription chain, because the ease of it, the speed which is going to happen after version 3 is fully integrated and merge mining is fully integrated. As far as volume goes, it'll probably be the number one inscription chain. What that entails, what that becomes, will it be gaming? Can we get gaming NFTs? Like, I hope. It would be amazing if I could wave a magic wand and have one thing happen. It would be, GTA 6 uses Bellscoin as its, blockchain technology chain. Obviously that's not going to happen, but stuff can happen, and it's going to be ready for some development, in a couple weeks anyway.
It can. In terms of, let's see, Litecoin ordinals, were there any of them that you liked? I mean, I know Litecoin Labs with Luke released the Litecoin punks, and many of them were wrapped on Ethereum, and maybe you were a part of this. But tell us about kind of the launch of Litecoin punks, or maybe the Moonbirds, or anything that you've maybe paid attention to on Litecoin.
Sure. I mean, I paid attention to all of it because, we, Emblem Vault, my company, basically supports these early ecosystems. So almost all ordinals that traded in the first 3 months traded through my company, Emblem Vault. Basically, it allows you to put the ordinal into a wallet and then trade that wallet on Ethereum. And so all Bitcoin ordinals, originally traded through Emblem Vaults. Same with, Litecoin. And I hold a bunch of Moonbirds. I don't know. I was there when Luke was launching the punks. I bought a few of them. I still have them. So
I like them a lot.
Yeah,
I do. I think the colors are a little bit more vibrant than some of the Ethereum punks. But
and it wasn't just the copy pasta, right? It was they were doing something a little bit
correct,
different. And so yeah, I'm a full believer in a multi-chain future. How those assets move and are accessed across blockchains. That's what my company does, right? We have a larger vision of how that's going to work. Mm-hmm. But for me, the provenance of the item itself, staying on its native chain, never leaving the chain, but being accessible and being able to trade or, stake or use in a new protocol, that's what we encourage and that's what we do. When ordinals actually happened on Litecoin, like we had even figured out like a way to do it, and people had it in with like within 2 hours. It was people were trading these on Ethereum. People are inventive and especially when it comes to making money, people get really creative really fast. Was
the advantage to wrap them in Ethereum a security advantage, or was it more of I want to put this on OpenSea, or what was the purpose of this?
Buy and sell. It's literally the ability to buy and sell.
Okay.
There was no native way to buy and sell ordinals on Bitcoin for like 2 months.
Yeah.
The whole PSBT, which we know now and everybody kind of uses, it wasn't developed, like it wasn't built, right? It was an idea. So yeah, it's just the ability to buy and sell, just something so simple, which we take for granted. Literally wasn't available. Same thing with Litecoin; it wasn't available natively to do yet, and so that's where Emblem kind of steps in with this technology. And so, like Rare Pepe's, which are counterparty NFTs, that's where we found our product market fit. Like when our company was first founded by, our lead developer, the idea of historical NFTs wasn't even a thing. Trading Rare Pepes wasn't really a thing, but people in the Rare Pepe community heard about what we were doing and basically figured out how to sell Rare Pepes on OpenSea. And we did, I don't know, it was like $60 million of Rare Pepe volume in 2021 on OpenSea, and it was all done through Emblem Vault.
Wow.
Almost all counterparty transactions of high-value NFTs still to this day happen through Emblem Vault. So, we're pretty proud of that, and we are building a larger kind of infrastructure with a larger vision. But right now, it's just, product market fit is a funny thing. You build something for one use case, and people are like, oh, I'll use it for this instead, and that's where we found our home.
Very cool. Very cool. What's your website for people to find you at Emblem Vault?
They can go to Emblem, so it's EMBLEM .markets, and Emblem Markets, where you can see now. It's very simple. We're still kind of working through our old collection and migrating it. It's actually we believe the largest migration of NFTs in history. It's over 50,000 NFTs that we're taking basically from our old contracts and moving them into new contracts. Which, I don't want to talk too much about, what Emblem does, but basically it allows this cross blockchain, functionality to basically put your NFTs anywhere.
So do you support, like, for example, if you have Bellinols, Dogenals, Litecoin inscriptions, you can take all of it?
We can do all of it. We're still a small team, but the vision is there, and certainly our market fit has already been found. But we did, like for Bellinols, to test our technology, we actually made a launch pad where we inscribed 10,000 what we called MBells, inscribed them on Bellscoin, but minted them into Emblem Vaults on Ethereum, right? So it was really the first kind of cross-blockchain inscription and mint. And so it was like a cross-blockchain mint pad. And so we did that, I don't know, 4 months ago or so successfully. And yeah, so this is like the beginning stages of this functionality, which if you're kind of a believer in Web3 like I am, all this kind of tech should just kind of disappear to the background where the end user doesn't even know what's happening. They just have their assets where they need them, right? So if I want to go to Blast to stake my NFT, I just want it there. I don't want to fiddle with it. I don't want to, figure out how to do it. I just want it there, right? So that's what we're working for. Like, we're still very much in the clunky stages of blockchain technology, as you know, right? And so we're building out that future where it will be just a lot less clunky and hopefully invisible in the background.
It's wild. And to think that it was much more clunky, just a few years ago. So again, we can sit here thinking, man, we've come a long way, but we really have so much. There's a long way to go, and I think that is good. That's a great thing. Or even if people are using these chains without knowing they're using the chains, I think that's probably the key to having everybody use them.
Absolutely.
Thanks for telling us about Emblem Vault. I think it's interesting and it's part of your story. So I have zero issues talking about that on the show. People check out Emblem Vault. Sounds like something that we could maybe utilize. Is it an onboarding process? Do they need an account, or you just
through your regular wallets? There's
wallet plugin sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like we're leaning in now of people who want to just bring collections to new chains. For example, the Pudgy Penguins, right? They're launching an L2. How are they going to bring the penguins to that L2, right? And there's debate amongst, communities about what the best ways are of doing that. But a lot of these ones, they're using burn and mint mechanisms. So they're literally burning the NFT on its native chain and minting a new one. It's fine if the NFT is like, of low value or no value. But can you imagine doing that with, I don't know, a CryptoPunk or a Node Monk that's worth, $10,000? You probably don't want to break that provenance chain. Right. So our product doesn't break the provenance chain at all. The NFT stays on its native chain, never leaves. You're basically trading the private key on the other chain. That's the way it works. You're trading the private key around, which allows us to jump that private key to any blockchain in the world. So that's what separates us from like a Wormhole. Wormhole's kind of the big dog. They raised, I don't know, $200 million to create their technology. Their technology is burn and mint. So that's fine for whatever Starbucks rewards cards where I need them on any chain on earth, but it's certainly not fine for anything resembling, high value NFTs or NFTs where you want to maintain provenance or art, whatever. Obviously that does not work at all. So that's where we step in. So and being that we deal with UTXO chains, even Wormhole can't even deal with UTXO chains. So we have a kind of early mover advantage in that aspect.
I think the user experience is a little bit terrifying to a degree with these things. And you're talking about high valuation. If you have an extremely value, Satoshi packet, your ordinal, or Litoshi packet, for Litecoin or whatever, like you need to use coin control. Our infrastructure is still admittedly primitive, although way better than it has been. You can run these things in core. You can't visualize them or render them, but they're there. But you got to have coin control as a baseline. But yeah, I think moving these high value items can be a bit, like I said, terrifying. So what is your best practices with handling this environment, operating within it, and not losing your value?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing where it's like, it's so much better than it was. I mean, when ordinals first went off, I'm creating like how to use Sparrow wallets, right? How to use Sparrow to send your ordinal and stuff. Oh my God. Yeah. Right. But now we have Xverse and we have Leather, right? All that sort of stuff just makes it, it's seamless now. And using our product, you basically create the NFT on Ethereum, say, And then all you're doing, you're copying the address that lives inside of that NFT, and you're just sending the NFT to that address. So it's actually really, really easy. So all of that is, has been kind of taken away. The need for how-tos and all that sort of stuff. Better tech is just has removed that. And so, that's just because of great teams, who have built stuff to make it way better. Like, can you imagine using a Sparrow wallet now? Like, why would you ever do that? Like, I mean, yes, the 10 hardcore Bitcoiners are like, why would I ever use any other wallet but Sparrow? It's like, okay, go for it. But for everybody else on Earth, they'll use Xverse, right? Yeah. So it's just better tech, right? And that's, I think, something we should always be shooting for, is this idea of just better tech. And I go back to the, pumped up fund model on Solana because, so many things had to be right for that model to work. And the first principle one is that I can use it on my phone, right? I can use the wallet on my phone. I can use the sniping tools on my phone. I can trade it literally using Telegram, right? All that stuff, the wallets, the explorers, all that had to be in place for pumped up fund to work, right? And so, that's why I love what's happened on Bitcoin. I love that, Litecoin pushed a little bit forward and Dogecoin pushed a little forward, because
and yet there are more inscriptions on bells, you're saying, than Bitcoin and Litecoin at this point. Well, over 100 million?
One of the core tenets of my crypto history is that people will jump over any wall if they think there's money on the other side, and they will go through incredible hoops if they think that there's money on the other side. And so that you could mint inscriptions for literally not even a penny, like 1/10 of it. You could mint hundreds or thousands of inscriptions for a penny or $1 or whatever it was. And people's brain, well, if I can mint them for free, let me mint a lot.
Right.
You never know. That catches hold, right? And so, yeah, people will jump through hoops. I mean, to Emblem Vault, what we built when it was in 2021, you couldn't use it on your mobile phone at all. Zero functionality. Wouldn't even load on the phone, right? And we still did $60 million in volume, right? So people will go through hoops if they think there's money on the other side of that. And so I think crypto is just one of those. It always reminds me of that, right? Where people they'll blow through the technology if they think there's money, but it doesn't make for great user experiences. And I think the bar's been set by what's happening on Solana and now what's happened on Bitcoin, where unless there's a whole lot of money there, people will move on and go to something else. Like, you have to create, as an industry, crypto has to create better user experiences.
Yeah, I think so.
It's time. It's time.
It is, and it's coming. Some chains faster than others, but yeah, and this is a call again for Litecoiners to check out Lite.space to see all the things we can crowdfund. And if you have some ideas that aren't crowdfunded and you'd like some funding, go there and set up a campaign. It's a great resource for the community. And currently, there's a matching with Charlie Lee and some others. So pretty cool stuff. But I agree. We're going the right direction, some more rapidly than others. I'm just impressed with the speed at which Bells has evolved in the short amount of time it's been out. So I think there's something special there. And I'll ask it. What about SegWit and Taproot and all these other things? These have already been implemented on Bells or no?
They will be with the V3 upgrade.
Which is wild. I mean, we're talking about a few months, and they've already accumulated the history and knowledge of these other chains.
Fed run the last 10 years. Right?
I think they have. Here's a question though: will you resurrect Feathercoin or Tenebricks or Fairbricks? I believe Fairbricks was Charlie Lee's first project prior to Litecoin. I mean, is there an effort to resuscitate every old chain out there, or is it just this is an anomaly?
It's funny because, after we did this, and trust me, there was no it was like my friend sent me the tweet. We talked about it. We launched it the same day, right? It was like, I didn't have this tremendous amount of forethought to it. There was no master plan. But now that we've done it, all these other people have spun up, found these old, cat coin, dog coins, all these other ones, right? Have tried to kind of mimic it. I think we were lucky enough to hit this inflection point where meme coins were kind of taking off. There was a lot of interest in meme coins. And then we just had this like incredible narrative.
I think that's the big one.
That resonated with people.
It's huge.
So
yeah.
you can always do it, but is the timing going to be right? Is the narrative going to be right? I've had people approach me, please redo this one. I'm like, I have enough of my plate. This is enough for me. It's really hard to do things. I know this from just business. To have something hit is really, really hard. And I think we were just hit that right time, right meme coin cycle.
Oh yeah.
Right narrative where it just attracted all these people. And that's just, fate to me. It's just luck.
It's wild. Just maybe going back to the beginning, what were some of the reasons why it was abandoned so quickly?
The main one was that Doge took off. Yeah.
People just like the Doge brand better than Bells, or?
Yeah, I think Doge, the memeability of it, that people got a hold of it and created those memes around it. I think for whatever reason, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't really know why it was the one that took off, but it certainly did. It got amazing traction very quickly. Reviewing the history of Doge, it got amazing traction very quickly. And when that happens, traction's everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now obviously Doge has taken on this just crazy life of its own. I think it's actually beneficial that, Billy and Jackson kind of are completely out of crypto and hate crypto.
Yeah.
I think that adds to like this legacy of how incredible Dogecoin is, that, launched as a complete joke. The founders literally abandon it and basically swear off crypto. Just adds to this incredible narrative of Dogecoin. There's the story of Billy, selling all his Dogecoin so he could afford, a used Honda Civic in like 2015. There's stuff like this that
was purchasing power then, man. Doge was doing good.
Narratives around this. If people have done the math, it's like $1 billion of Dogecoin now or whatever. Stories like that just enrich the entire, narrative and storyline of Dogecoin, which make it, just something it's basically impenetrable at this point in time. Obviously, Elon adopting it as well, make it this
huge,
huge. You can't fabricate stuff like that. That just becomes like a self-sustaining thing. And maybe that never happens again. Maybe that's a once in a crypto thing. Probably is. But yeah, Dogecoin is magical in that way.
I would agree. Anything else you wanted to add? I think this has been a great conversation. Again, I'm grateful you've come on the show, kind of shared about this. Again, this is the guy that discovered Bells kind of on an old thread, and we got it back to life within a few hours. And now we have a story and an actual ecosystem that's being soon to be merged mine with other Nakamoto and S-CRYPT coins. And it's just a wild thing. It blows my mind. I'm excited about it. To be honest, I'm very excited about it.
Hey man, I'm excited about it too. I mean, it's literally, part of what I've tried to do in crypto is try to, I'm at this point in my life where I'm trying to build things that are going to outlast me. Mm-hmm. And I think crypto is that, I've been involved in a lot of different things in my life, businesses. This is the one kind of area where you can build things that are going to, have real legacy. And, Bells, if that's one thing that is part of my legacy, I'd be really happy about that. And one of the highlights was we got Bells on an exchange after kind of the relaunch and stuff, and you could actually trade Doge for Bells, and sending out a tweet and tagging Billy on it, and Billy coming back because I was like, hey Billy, what do you think about you could trade your two babies for each other, in this trading pair? How crazy is this? And he was just like, what can I say? This is nuts. That sort of thing is just, it's just rewarding and it's fun. And it doesn't have to be anything serious. It doesn't have to be anything other than a meme coin, but who knows, whether it's Bells or some other meme coin. Like, I truly believe we're building the future, and the future of not only money, but the internet here. And how it all works, a decade or 2 decades out from today, I don't think there's anybody on earth who can predict that. But it's amazing to get to build it with, communities and people literally all over the world. It's really special, and I do not take that for granted.
Hear, hear. It's something. Now, I do have one small question, but I think it's important. Is the ticker BEL or BELL?
It's BEL.
BEL.
That's the traditional ticker. People have tried to make it into other, because there is some other ticker that conflicts with it. Like some CoinMarketCap has another one named BEL, but that is the ticker that Billy created, and we're sticking to it.
Stick with it.
So it's BEL. I would say if you really want to know, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see people posting about bells all the time, because people bomb my tweets like they bomb your tweets, and so you can jump in the Bells Discord and find the actual links if you ever want to purchase some or whatever. Don't get scammed. There's no need to get scammed. Just do a little bit of research and you can find the actual places to buy it and stuff.
Okay, here. Well, sir, I appreciate it. We can land the plane there. Thanks for coming on the 84 Million podcast. And again, it was a departure from Litecoin, but this is S-CRYPT. This is part of the lineage. So pretty great. And everybody listening, of course, thank you. And if you're listening to us on your podcast or watching us on YouTube or X, remember, you can always go to 84million.com/podcast to find all the episodes and see the page there. So anyway, Adam, have a good one. And everybody that wants to follow him, he is on X at Adam A. McBride, McBride, correct? Yep. Adam A. McBride, and give him a follow. Certainly interesting content he's involved with and sharing with the world. So cheers, Adam. Thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.